All right. Well, you're not going to tell me which one the laugh track is. Why?
On this?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Come on, let's let it go.
I don't
no
know.
laugh track.
I don't want to do the laugh track because I don't want us to turn into like a disc jockey podcast. Like
Crazy Ira and the douche.
yeah, like the crazy Ira and the douche from Parks and Rec. Like I don't want to be like doing the nope. Like whatever. I got it wrong.
We could put
All right.
the Discord soundboard on there and just have like whatever me, Jake, Dave,
like all our
like
phagisms.
yeah.
So
and
you're
just have we have a randomizer that picks from our list.
yeah.
That could get bad though.
Well, this one you can only have 4.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I'd have to change it every time. But I would love to get Cameron has this soundbite from our gaming escapades where I don't even remember what game we're playing.
I'm drinking Tank 7. And Tank 7 is bubbly. It makes me burp.
Shout out Boulevard.
I think we're playing COD.
We're like in a lobby. Like
We're
we're
like
not even
loading
really
into a
doing it. Or
Warzone
no, we're
game.
doing shipment.
Yeah.
We're actually playing like
grinding.
shipment
And
24/7.
I throw out a burp that, in Two Towers where it's that shot of that Uruk-hai and he's like roaring. It sounded exactly like that.
It's like that is the most
That is the
Uruk-hai
oldest
yell
burp
I've ever heard.
Guy.
That was identical, dude. Oh my god.
That.
It's like all carbon dioxide and just air coming out of this burp.
Like-
So it's like, and it hits my cerebellum, and I immediately go to Helm's Deep in this face of this Uruk-hai, and I just start laughing. Nobody understands what's happening, but like, and then I call it out, and Cameron starts laughing. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
We'll have to do a quick cut in the edit. Pull that in quick. Yeah, I think we're going to change it up a little bit today to do our intros. And you may have noticed a little bit of a wardrobe change across the panel here. My name's Duncan, Chalk One. And these shirts, probably, I don't know how far we are into this thing now, but we're all wearing different shirts all the time. It was mostly classes, right? Like you were an instructor a few times in your career. And so as pararescue classes would graduate, they'd all like pool their creative thoughts into some funny t-shirt. All of those t-shirts have then cycled with all of your kids. My wife wears one. Like they've just kind of gone out into the ethos. So I'm wearing class 9105. It's got this dope. Hold on.
It's got this dope shark. It's a great white shark with legs, like amazing quads and calves, holding oxygen tanks, and it says "Oh hell,
OL hell.
OL hell, OL hell Resort and Health Club," and it's like got the 80s like sharp triangle glasses. It's very badass.
It is badass.
It's badass.
That's badass.
Totally and completely
badass.
Well, tell him the story, the motto story quick.
The motto on the front says, they bust them, we paint them. And I didn't know that. I mean, I kind of assumed like what that would mean, but Dad told me the story. So there was like some guy in the class that no one really liked. He was kind of a douche. And they like pinned him down and painted his testicles.
The students did, not
Yeah,
the instructors.
yeah. Well, the instructors are busting everyone's balls.
That's our job. That's what we're paid to do.
Yeah, paid to do that.
Not literally also,
But his
Sometimes.
class turned on him and painted him with like boot varnish.
Oh
But
my
that's
god.
like toxic.
Yeah.
And your
This guy is now
skin is thin down there,
In
so it's
the,
absorbing a lot of the toxins.
This guy is
And-
castrated.
Yeah, so you'll notice that the I don't know if you can see it, the 005 in the class, they're painted in.
Oh, dude.
These are clever
They
shirts.
don't make these shirts like they used
Yeah.
to.
I
They
don't-
bust them. We paint them.
Well, you can't
Yeah.
make shirts anymore.
We're busting.
Shout out to 91005.
Yeah, dude. Great shirt, boys.
Great shirt.
Great shirt.
It's still in circulation.
Yep. All right, Tyler.
I am Chalk 2. I'm Tyler. I am rocking a very thin, also very old. Parts of these shirts is like, there are like giant holes, and like it smells. The pits are yellowing. Like it is
It's
not a good
I don't
looking
think
shirt.
those are the
but
parts of the shirt you're supposed to point out.
I'm just
by the
pointing
way.
out that like no matter the how much life is left in these, we continue to wear them until they disintegrate, like men do with underwear. And
to the credit too of like however cotton shirts were
That's
made
true.
40 years ago.
Whatever.
Like,
They're
these
not
things
the-
are bomb proof.
they're not the like whatever softball teams make now that like fall apart in 2 years.
Yeah.
These are from 84, 82. So I'm
91,
rocking
And it's not like dad like washed these on gentle
Cold.
and
Yeah.
like hang dried them. He fucking threw them in
I
with
don't even
like
do that in
boots
boots.
and like boots. This thing
climbing gear, crampons.
still looks great.
Yours is like vibrant
I
white.
take care of
Yeah,
this one
yeah.
because like this
Oh,
is my charter
Dude, totally.
now.
This one especially, like this is
Cold,
cold,
hang dried.
gentle,
Oh,
hang
good for
dry
you
only,
guys.
like,
Yeah.
because I climb in this a lot, and so like I'm probably grinding it on sandpaper too, which isn't great. But anyways, I'm rocking a.
You can
Sorry, I'm
watch it.
standing. Can you see?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just watch it. Yeah.
I'm rocking a
You can see
Air
it really
National Guard Moffat, which is Dad said
California.
Bay Area, California section, and it's just it's a dope. It's a Pavlo, right?
That is an H3. So
H3.
that which was the precursor to
Actual.
the 53, which was the first Jolly Green in Vietnam. So
Awesome.
Cool. I'm Cameron, Chalk 4. I'm wearing one of my favorite shirts. So I own like, I think like 2 or 4. Each of the kids has like, I don't know.
We've all taken them.
Yeah, you don't really ask. You just kind of like,
You just-
Yeah.
There's a
They're on top of the
recycling-
clean laundry pile.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I'll take that.
Yeah, good.
I'm wearing 92003, the back.
You're going to
Yeah,
have to kind of
just
like
turn around.
stand
Yeah,
and
turn
squat
around.
and we'll talk about the shirt for you. Dad, tell us about the shirt.
yeah, so
also go ahead.
yeah, so students were called cone heads. So you got a big cone head here that's all chained up and underwater and holding his breath. And then it basically says Pararescue Combat Control Selection Team. So at that point in time, it was the selection team for both PJs and combat controllers. So proud of that. Yeah,
Sit
and
up
then-
straighter,
talk
Cameron.
slower.
Cameron, sit
I'm
straighter.
watching him
Just-
stride.
just doing
passing
squats and burpees.
So anyway,
Yeah.
the
What's really-
combat controllers.
What's really funny is if you look over Cameron's left shoulder, Dad has a painting of. We can talk about that briefly if we want, or we can talk about another. It's just like tying Cameron's t-shirt to that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it there? But yeah, there's a cone head, and that the door of the office that I had at the selection team, the OL, a student painted that, and I kicked it out of the door and took it with me when I left. So
So that's Dad riding a
cone
conehead who's also drowning. In all these.
Common theme in
Yeah.
selection
Of which
course.
Dad has a rockin' mustache in that because he had one for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I am also supporting. There's a lot of little like,
It's
like little
podcast is deep.
there's a dead guy on this. So Rip Doug Jarena. We'll talk about that story later.
Rip Doug. We're
Yeah.
also,
Also, you may notice,
Yeah, it's-
this is our first time recording
it's early or it's late.
in a morning.
Right.
None of us feel like drinking scotch, so Dad's a big coffee fan.
We'll get there.
All of us are. Yeah, I mean, they're right there.
They're right there.
Yeah. So wrapping up on the t-shirts, it's really fun for me to see you guys wearing those shirts because you walk in the door, and it seems like the storytelling just keeps going, right? Because you didn't know about what that meant, and I love it when Chloe has them too, and Kristen wearing them, like just to see our broader family wearing those things, it keeps it alive. Every time I find one, I'll start bringing it out so you guys can.
I'd
know.
also say too, like you go to a gym, 24-hour fitness, whatever. Everybody's in their
Lunk
kind
zone.
of lunk zone, whatever. And a lot of people put a lot of energy into like their athletic kit. So I'll go to my gym. A lot of people wearing like really high end, Fiore shirts.
Yeah,
and
it's like
don't get me wrong, I
athleisure.
like that, but I roll up in these like ratty old. There's holes in them, and people will come up and be like, "Dude, that is awesome." And they're all graphics on the back. They're all like
Faded. And
Yeah.
it's called sauce. It's like the individuals who are curating their outfits to go in PT. They're basically just like creating this outfit, but like if you can throw something on and it goes together, it's called sauce. That guy's got the sauce.
You just describe swag.
Yeah, but it's called sauce now.
Or
It's
Riz.
all over my TikTok.
We need TJ to join one. And he'll give us he'll tell us what
He's got
sauce
like
means.
bell-bottom jeans on now. Like
Well,
it's all
I'll tell you,
cyclical.
there's
LA
nobody-
fashion is
He's the tip of the spear.
It's crazy
It's wild.
right now.
I also want to double down on what Duncan said of like, while they're also really badass, it also gives you kind of a little bit of a jolt to just go that much farther.
Yeah,
Like
that's
if you
true.
look down or you know what's on your chest, whether you're climbing, benching, what'd you say, 215?
What?
What's your bench right now?
Oh,
How much
thanks,
you
man.
I'm just
appreciate
hurry
that,
up.
too. Yeah, I hit 225
So, yeah,
for
like,
the
whether
first
you're
time in my
doing-
life the other day.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
225 on the bench. Cameron's doing a 25-man raid.
What? Fuck you. What? I go to the gym 3 times a week at
All right,
5:30 in the morning in
Orange
downtown
Theory.
LA.
Yeah, okay. You put these shirts on. There might be a little testosterone left in them, and I think you're witnessing the boys.
It pushes you just that much further. Like you're going on a run and it sucks, but you're like trying to hit some sort of milestone. It gives you that extra push.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good because there'll be a lot of people that probably are. It used to be right. Small career field. You couldn't buy T-shirts. They were only our T-shirts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people got really pissed.
It's small batch.
I mean, people lost sleep about if you saw somebody, even a sticker,
Yeah.
the IP had not disseminated out of the team yet.
Mm.
And the world really didn't know. It was owned by the guys that like earned it.
Mhm.
But that has really, really changed, right? Like just over time, the brand has become a more public thing.
Yeah.
And now I think rather than being irked about that, I'm proud of that. When I see,
Yeah.
I actually had a neighbor roll by me the other day with a PJ sticker on his car. And I'm like, no way.
Oh,
you know what I
remember,
mean?
Yeah.
And I drove up on him and like accosted him.
Mm.
And I'm like, dude, I go, hey, I live right there. What are the chances of that? Right. And then he kind of was looking at me a little weird, probably because I drove the Mustang up on him and blocked him in the street. And I'm like, I got a sticker too.
Sticker bros.
And then I started talking to him. I'm like, when did you get here? What unit? Where? And kind of going back to that. If you had a sticker, you were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than you supported the PJ Foundation and they gave you a sticker because you gave money, right? And I started immediately asking him questions, and then he said something like, and he looked really sad and not funny. And when you meet a PJ in the wild,
Yeah, it's like,
it's like
you're jiving.
you're animated and
Like two
blah, blah, blah,
dogs.
blah, blah. yeah, smelling butts. You're immediately smelling butts. You know what I mean? And he was like kind of looking ahead and not looking at me. And then he said something like, I don't really like to talk about it. And I was like, oh, it's over.
Say no more.
Quitter. Which may be evident by this. We really like to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And
That's all right.
And then, yeah. So I but it just illustrates when I saw that sticker, it brought me back to, but it's good. I like you guys wearing it because it mirrors it. It takes it out for a walk. And sometimes when I'm wearing one, and I see some young kid and I noticed that he noticed, I kind of wonder if he's been thinking or learning or he saw
watching
something.
YouTube videos.
Yeah.
on it.
And I kind of watch for the Padawans in the crowd, right?
It's
But-
still very small. Like in 33 years, we've only rolled up on someone else through some sort of apparel once, and that was in Tahoe. Like only once.
Yeah.
So it's still very small. And sometimes like whether we're shooting trap up at Whiteman or whatever, like one student, somebody somewhere was like, oh, you got a pararescue sweatshirt on. Are you a PJ? Like it's still, even now, 30 years later, like it's still very small.
Maybe like maybe this was like last year. I don't know. I was driving in Seattle and saw a car with a sticker. I don't remember if it was the Flash, maybe like a PJ Foundation thing. And it was kind of this like weird old van. And I got up right next to him. It was Brian Truby just driving on the highway. And I kind of like, he recognized me. And then he texted me later and he's like, "Get your dad to call me back." Like, all right, Truby. Yeah. I was like, yeah, thanks, man. We'll see you around. But,
That's funny.
yeah. So that has happened to me too, like in the wild, but not very often.
I think in Montana too, just to wrap it up fast.
Yeah.
Sticker on Montana on my bachelor party, I think one of our convoys like saw a sticker on a truck, and we were like trying to figure out who it was. And
we talked to him, I remember.
Yeah, at the stop. Well, you did.
Yeah.
You again.
And that guy was the real deal.
Sniffed his butt.
I smelled PJ Poopy on that guy. He was definitely the real deal.
Funny.
You got to add that Tahoe story to
the Get story.
Yeah. We should.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. I'll remind me after this.
All right, Jolly Flight, check in.
Chalk 1.
Chalk 2.
Chalk. Here we go.
So yeah, as we jump right into story time, the first one on the board is a McClellan 5K night SL jump.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's set the stage, right? So at that point in time, again, for folks that are fans, and we're hoping our numbers are climbing. I was
Slowly.
two.
Yeah.
It was trending down for a bit. Now it's going up. I was stationed in Northern California at McClellan Air Force Base that has since closed from 82 to 85. I would place the time of this one, summertime, let's call it 83 or 84. We were dropping at Wilton Drop Zone, which was out by Rancho Murrieta, outside of about a 45-minute drive from McClellan Air Force Base. Shout out to Frank, our
Kiko too.
And Frank and Kiko.
Frank and Kiko.
Marcy, my wife's mom and dad, grandparents, who basically live now maybe 5 miles from where this story took place. So we, at that point in time, PJs were only jumping static line. We were just beginning to get into free fall jumping. We would do static line jumps, out of the 130 out of the helicopter. This was a 130 a static line jump out of a helicopter. Normally when you did that, it was standard 1,500 feet jump over land, daytime, and there's no real reason to parachute out of a helicopter other than just to do a currency jump and be good at parachuting, right? The parachuting would have always been out of the 130. The helicopter, you flew there, it landed or threw you out in the water and you did your job and they picked you up and you left. So this was basically a currency jump, but we wanted to do a higher jump. And just for fun on a night jump, we did a 5,000 foot static line jump, which I had never done before, right? At this point in time, I probably had 20, 25 round jumps, I would say. And of that, maybe a third of them were nighttime. Every one of those at nighttime would have been at 1,500 feet. And what you don't understand sometimes, which is really important, is you build a muscle memory when you do something the same way all the time that you don't know you're building. And little things like roughly how long it took me to exit the plane and get to the ground and roughly how far I went. And there was an average wind speed on most of those jumps that gets you to feel, it's what you base your memory on how to do stuff. But everything kind of broke down on this night in a way that I had no idea, but in a way that the earth literally reminded me, right? So now a quick shout out to my mentor, friend, one of the best PJs that ever lived. His name is Tim Ryan, and he's going to play, pretty big in a lot of our stories for a lot of different reasons, and in the episode today. But so I was jumping with Tim, and he's a little bit more experienced PJ at the time, and he and I were on the stick together. We were jumping together. So basically, we exit this ramp on this 53 over Sacramento, Wilton Drop Zone at night at 5,000 feet. Parachute opens up, everything's fine. I'm like, the earth looks different from up here. We're like really far up. And all of a sudden you feel a little bit more fragile, right? Because it happens fast. We jumped as low as 800 feet. And people jump lower than that into Panama, right? So when you're in a round shoot that low, you're on the ground really fast. You barely got time to get turned into the wind and get your shit together and smack the ground, right? But from 5,000 feet, you had a lot of time to think about it. Like, that's a very fragile looking thing above me, And so we're descending. I'm watching him. We have chem lights all over us so that we can see each other. It was a pretty starlit night. I don't think it was a big moon night, but it was a pretty starlit night. So even without the lighting, I could see him. And it's no wind. And then when I say no wind, I mean from 5,000 feet when they threw the streamers out with chem lights on to figure out where we needed to exit the plane to land where we wanted to land. Those streamers landed on the target from 5,000 feet. It just literally, that is no joke.
Wow.
And so, which will be represented here in a science way in just a moment. But so Tim, we got a lot of time. We're like, not much to do. He tore the chem light off of his helmet and like just threw it and just watched it like disappear into the darkness, and I was like, I guess that's what you do on a 5,000 foot round jump. And so I tore mine off and I threw it down and, going down. I kind of, that timing in my mind about, hey man, I gotta be getting close to the ground because it was dark enough that you couldn't really see anything. And then I noticed that when I kept looking down at the chem light, it's spinning as it was falling, just spinning in a circle. And I watched it. Then I looked up at him and then I remember we were getting pretty close, right? And then I'm like, I know we're getting closer to the ground. I know we're getting a little bit close. And I looked at him. I looked down at the chem light again, and it was not spinning anymore. It was just stopped.
It was just there.
And I thought, and again, like sometimes we talk, like your brain's like apple, orange. Why is that thing stopped? What does it mean? Where's Tim? Pay attention to Tim. And I remember seeing it stopped, looking up at him, and I started to say, hey, don't get too cool. And no joke. I got to the L in close. And the next thing you know, my ears were ringing. I mean, like I couldn't breathe. My knees got up to my shoulders somehow. You know what I mean? Like I just pile drived. While
you're looking up.
Looking up.
Yeah,
It's like the worst version of missing a step.
Yeah. No concept that I was that close to the earth, right? And I mean, I hit the ground. I couldn't breathe because it knocked all the wind out of me. I just didn't know what was going on. It's like my body was running this diagnostic. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. And the ground party, this is Stan Sanders, my buddy from all our other stories. He was a ground party, had a radio, and he just ran up and leaned over me. He didn't say anything. He just ran up, had the radio, leaned over me, and I was making this guppy sound, like, I couldn't breathe. I was just making a guppy sound. And he just immediately got on the radio. You guys, he's hurt. You need to get down. Blah, blah, blah. He's immediately doing PJ stuff, saying stuff. And I hear the bird. It's at 5,000 feet. And we talked about this yesterday. I heard them tip that thing on its side. And I heard the rotor blades just go, it was coming down hard because they thought I was hurt. So he's talking to the helicopter. I can hear the helicopter come down. And then I feel the feeling in my body starting to kind of come back down. You know what I mean? Like I'm catching my breath. I can say some words. I can move my legs around. I can move my arms. I think I'm okay.
I finished your original sentence.
Close. So I ended up being fine. I didn't even like twist my knee or anything. I just slammed into the ground so hard.
Fracture a vertebrae or
and then like, sorry, you were just
no, I was like, isn't there a story of like someone getting caught in a tornado, but they got like knocked unconscious and they got thrown however far they went, but they were totally fine because like you're limp and you didn't brace, which meant that like
you were
bracing
relaxed,
locks your muscles, which then locks your bones. Like if you were relaxed, then you might have just been like jelly and like,
that's kind of the wives' tale that's why drunks don't get.
I was just going to say that.
Because they survive.
Yeah.
They just limp.
But the data says, like to your point, but I also think it had something to do with probably being 20.
Oh yeah,
and you had cartilage to spare.
Really, really good
ligaments
shape.
are nice and like bendy.
I'm thinking of the SpongeBob episode.
Oh,
he's skiing, and his bones
femurs go up through his top
head, and he's like,
So
let's do that again.
So yeah, that was a memorable night, right? And then, something like that happens. You think you got hurt. Everybody thinks you got hurt. You didn't get hurt. And then on the way back, we grabbed some beer. We're drinking beer in the truck on the ride back to McClellan. They had a midnight chow. The chow hall was open at night. Go and get breakfast at like 12, 1 o'clock kind of thing. And we went into midnight chow. And I can remember we were drunk as skunks and messing around like we shouldn't have been. I think there's a lot of like, I lived through this, and there was a lot of like energy in our group. And I remember the chow hall guy came out, was getting really pissed that we were raising way too much hell. And Scotty Fales was on that time, and he got up to Scott's like 5'7", but like, you know, he's got lumberjack energy. You know what I mean? Big dwarf, unlimited. Yeah, Gimli, dude, that is it. Like, that's it. Like, and the part where he's killing people with the axe, 7, 8, 9. That's Scott, right? And he got Scott, like, I remember he got in front of me, between me and the guy, and he's like, he almost died tonight. You know what I mean? And the guy's like, whatever. It just left us alone. Give him the pancakes.
All right, extra tater tots for you then.
Yeah, so that's that one. And you know, sadly, Tim's not around anymore. But for the guys that are listening to this, anybody in the pararescue community around my time would be able to tell stories about that guy. He was the epitome and the design, the epoch. You know, he was, when you think of a PJ, that guy was it, and he made himself both capable from a skill set standpoint, and then supremely, I guess I would say supremely capable from a physical standpoint, and then also from a training. He understood. He was a expert in a way that I didn't really know anyone else. Like, he knew every directive, every reg. He sweated the details, right? So that guy was just a machine, and fun to hang around too.
It's wild that, like, you know, in the previous episode, we're talking about that design and how some people let the motto get to their head, or like they just became this motto rather than like embracing it and living by it.
Yeah.
But like these reoccurring characters, individuals, people who were this epoch. Yeah. Like, there are a lot of them.
Yeah. I would say it's like sensei PhD kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? He believed it, and he wanted to make it the best. And I mean, and just a quick side story. He's an unbelievable physical specimen, and he always, in his uniforms, you know, we wore these jungle fatigues that were Vietnam era fatigues that were just solid green, and they had the slanted pockets on them. And you know, at that point in time, our section had a laundry account, and you just throw your uniforms in this bin, and they'd come back just like razor sharp starch. It was the best looking uniform I ever put on. And when Tim put that on, I mean, he filled that thing out in an unbelievable. But to describe his spirit a little bit, we used to go to the chow hall, and then we'd walk over to the mail room. So the main drag at McClellan had a crosswalk on it. And when Tim and I would walk across the crosswalk, we'd hold hands.
As you would.
And, you know, at least one of us looked like this rock hard Sergeant Rock. We used to call him, this is no joke, the one called Ryan. That was his moniker. The one called Ryan. But we would be like whistling and swinging hands. And I think that says a lot, you know, about don't get too caught up. Like have it. But don't make that be how you're introduced to the world, and make people kind of sit back on their heels and go, those fucking guys, I don't even try.
What's wrong with these
kids? Yeah.
I had a story floated in my mind, but I won't say it. I'll put it in the mirror. We'll do it later.
Yeah.
It's the one where you guys are like telling a different section that you all
Oh yeah, I had tried it once.
Bang each other.
and they're like, yeah.
And you're just dead serious.
Yeah. Everybody on the team was on that joke. And it was like, how do you know you don't like it if you haven't tried it? I go, we've all tried it. And then you'd ask somebody at the table next to him, like, Tim, have you tried it? Oh yeah. I tried it hard. I didn't like it at all. Yeah. That was awesome.
Maybe you changed somebody that day and they were like, you know what? He's right. How do I know I don't like it?
Yeah, that's right.
He's right.
Oh,
I always wondered.
Yeah.
Andy going over to Oscar and be like, Oscar, am I gay?
I don't know.
That's an Office reference.
Yeah, come on. Anybody that didn't know this probably shouldn't watch this podcast. But
That's hilarious.
all right, where are we at next?
I got the next
Yeah,
one.
you got it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to tie this into like you guys pretending like you all bang each other in the chow hall or whatever, but it's a great story. I've always loved this one where you guys liberated the seer course rabbits.
Yeah. This was a fun thing. We would go out to the Air Force Academy, again from McClellan, flying in 53s. We'd have a crew, pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, second flight engineer, and 2 PJs, kind of the standard crew for a rescue bird at that point in time. We go out to the academy and we would work with their SEER, survival, escape, resistance, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. That's what SEER stands for. So it was their survival school at the academy.
There was reconnaissance.
not then anyway. And I don't think now. I think SEER's still that. And so what they would do is they'd have survival instructors there, and they'd have these cadets, and they would go out in the field, and they'd have to navigate, and they'd act like a downed pilot, and then they'd get to a point, and then we'd come in and do what we really do. The helicopter would fly in, it would drop us off, we'd move over land on NVGs, we'd get to a point, we'd do our interface with somebody that we're checking to make sure they're a survivor, authenticate them, then we'd get them back in the bird, and we'd do IVs on them and med problems. And then we'd bring them home. Then we'd talk about it. And, we did that, I think, for several nights. It was really a great trip. And when we go back to that altimeter situation, like one of the things we had to do, we were at altitude in the mountains. When you're in the summer and it's hot air and you're at altitude, you got to be real smart about taking barometric pressures so that they have to figure out the power that the aircraft has and what weight they can be to be able to hover over a certain altitude. There was some math in it. And I enjoyed that because normally the PJs weren't the ones figuring out the math, but now we were on the ground, taking the pressures, reading them back to the bird so they could set it based on that location. It was a fun thing. But on one of my trips, we, we're on the ground, we're moving up, going into this cadets, and there was one of the cadets that was crying a little bit. It was cold. I don't know what was going on, but this person was crying, and I was supposed to go. I was supposed to go up.
An 18-year-old freshman at the Air Force Academy doesn't like getting thrown in mud in the mountains alone. It kind of sucks.
And normally those moments where you're authenticating survivors, they're really, and especially in a situation like that where we're alone. We don't have anybody covering us. The helicopter's not over top of us. An A-10's not over top of us. You put yourself in a situation where you're at risk. And to protect the team and the mission, you have to take control at that moment. You have to do what you need to do to authenticate this person. You have to check them for booby traps. There's a whole protocol. And then you get moved with them, right? And so that can be a little aggressive because you have to set the tone that I'm in charge, right? Back to that prior. But it all kind of went out the window when I got up to this person and they were like bawling. I'm like, hey, we're here to help. Get you out of here.
Relax.
Which again, I think if you were living in the Motto, you would have put them in their face and, drill them into the ground and put their arm.
Say the keyword.
Do you have a gun? Do you have a gun on you? We did that, and we did it a few times. Great, like really good practice for us because you could get in this scenario. There are people we didn't know. We were in a place we didn't normally train in. It was really good training for us. And then we also got a chance to just see the academy. There's all the Air Force history there. It was really a prideful thing to fly in a 53 and plant that thing sort of near the chapel
in the quad.
Yeah.
How picturesque.
So really cool.
Yeah, wow.
And then while we were there, we got a chance to go see their SEER compound, and we noticed that they had a bunch of rabbits in there. And typically, rabbits and a SEER course, it's not great for the rabbits. And they had some pretty good sized rabbits too, right? And so we had this thought that we do what PJs do. And we were big into like liberating camps at that point in time. That was a big part of our mission set, was liberating POWs and taking down compounds and getting people back. And we practiced that a lot. So I think when we saw this opportunity,
a compound,
there are actual rather than being, part of
the aggressor,
survival and food, and we looked at them as POWs, right? So the night before we left, we got into the compound, we busted the rabbits out, we took them back with us. And then when we had them, we're like, what does flying in a helicopter for 4 or 5 hours due to a rabbit. You're like, do we have we don't have earplugs for rabbits.
There's no Google to ask.
Yeah, there's no
like,
Google. So we were like, well, on the off chance that the noise probably make them panic and die on the flight, we stuck a bunch of cotton bandages in their ears, and then we wrapped this big turban up with their ears like this.
Completely.
And it was so heavy, the rabbits' heads were doing this. You know what I mean? And there's a picture, I think it's of me and Dwayne Stanton, another really amazing guy, holding the rabbits in our flight suits, you know, and I forget, we left some note, you know, we would have left a note.
a poem of sorts.
So that was always a good memory, right? And as I remembered, I think one of the rabbits might have gotten a little scrambled on the flight, and then the other one of the pilots gave to his daughters or something. So it had a little bit better life for a while,
hopefully. Let's say that it was a long, well-lived life after it was busted up from
others may live,
including rabbits.
Or you like mistook the room and it was actually like a lab to study rabies and like how it interacted with rabbit populations. And then patient zero rabbit. The CDC guy comes in, he's like, what the fuck? These fucking PJs just released a strain.
Where did the zombie rabbit go?
Antibiotic resistant strain.
Shit, it's gone. Were rabbit's not here anymore.
That's funny.
I always joke that I've told that story to Katie a couple times, and I always joke that one day you'll be on a hospital bed needing like a liver transplant or something, and that rabbit will walk in and like repay the favor. You showed me kindness once, human. It's time to repay the favor.
With hypnotoad eyes.
Sentient rabbit. My great.
Yeah, you'll just figure out when you die that the supreme being is a rabbit. Come with me.
It's like Nibbler from Futurama. Ultra smart, super cunty.
Divine being.
Yeah, divine being. Yeah. All right, Duncan, you're up. Or Cameron, you're up. Sorry, Cameron.
I need the.
Well, actually, one thing I want to do real quick that we forgot. I did have a little bit of an admin thing from our prior episode that I wanted to come back to. And that was, we've talked for a couple of times about the motto, the Pararescue motto, and I wanted to have a chance to kind of get that right and all right. So here's the full motto. It is my duty as a pararescueman to aid the sick and injured. I will be prepared to perform those duties quickly and efficiently. I place those duties above personal comfort and desires. These things we do that others may live. So when, that's the motto. We've talked a little bit about that in multiple ways, but I just wanted to say it right once because I don't want 1,000 PJs all yelling at me that I didn't. And I think I may have transposed and paraphrased one word in that, so I might have to do that one more time.
There's no cuts. Yeah. Like that was all right off the chest, off the heart.
You're not reading off of anything.
No, there's nothing here.
His phone's not on.
Yeah.
It is.
So get off my back.
We don't read your comments anyway.
It actually reads. This is the one part I got wrong on that. It actually reads, it is my duty to save life and aid the injured. I don't know why I always say sick, but it's save life and aid the injured. So that's the whole thing. And I think, it's funny, just trying, 62 years old.
Look great.
Yeah.
You look good.
And that thing, to me, it's not the words. Like I know what it means. And I, it is who I am, and it's a thread that's tied us together in a different way, I think, and ties me to a lot of other people. So I don't really need the words. I mean, maybe I'm being, I'm rationalizing there, but as I was reading it and relearning it and memorizing it, and it really does say a lot, right? And it's something that I feel like I actually should say every morning when I wake up, right? And there's a lot of ways to help people. You don't have to be in a helicopter with a bunch of gear, right? You just got to be ready to help when the time comes up. And so it's a great reminder. This exercise has been a great reminder for me.
Good, good.
Nice
Yeah.
work.
We'll get to your civvy missions eventually too, because like just in that same vein of like,
I'll be ready.
I'll be ready. I'll do what I can to help.
Yeah.
I think that's a.
Duncan and I had one together.
We did.
I remember.
That was a good one.
I was
Yeah.
in the van, but anyways.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
were also like 6.
Yeah, I don't.
probably,
Yeah,
like-
you were
Yeah,
there.
but it might have been in the van,
Maybe.
technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Let's, I got one more.
Yeah, he
queued
said
up.
it.
He did. He said it.
He said it.
We got Tim Ryan saves a life, guy into the wires.
Yeah. So this is a
This
big,
guy again.
this is a big story.
Put it on.
And one
Oh,
that,
yeah, right.
PJs in the late 80s and the 90s, this would be one that people know well, but,
Just keep talking. Don't watch me.
yeah. So when Tim left McClellan, I think he went to Osan in Korea. So I know this story took place in Osan. And as the career field was progressing, we were getting, now we were free fall qualified. Now we'd been trained up, and then we're pushing the limits on, first you learn how to do it with equipment. You learn how to do it at night with equipment. You learn how to do it higher at night with equipment and oxygen masks. Then you put a weapon. And then that's all, when you say skydiving in military terms, that's all high altitude, typically low opening. So you leave the plane, you free fall.
High altitude, low opening. Almost as if that makes it.
Oh, God.
That deserves
there's
no
the
explanation.
And
Yep,
there's,
no
and
tangent.
there's the generational shift, folks.
Read back the acronym. Listen to the tune I just sang. If you don't get it, you're not ready.
Yeah, as a dad, how many times I heard that noise
Really?
into the middle of the night, and I wanted to throw your box out the window and make you bastards go to sleep. I think I did pull the plug once on Duncan.
Only once, but the
lit-
threats were.
Yeah, you
Many.
always threatened you were going to turn it off. Like, he's never going to. One time you did, and I'm like, squared up. Like, let's
You
go,
bastard.
man. Yeah.
You bastard, I hate you.
Yeah.
I have to save it.
I was 24-9, having the game of my life. God damn it.
24-9. Like not even.
It's the game of my life. I just got the rocket, dude.
As on that continuum, then there's another style of this kind of military jumping, basically, which is basically a way to get to where we need to be. It's like how we got to work. It was our drive to work in the morning when you think about it, right? So now they were doing high altitude, high opening. So the idea there is you could offset where you would exit the airplane and you basically fly quietly that last, X miles to where you need to land, and rather than sort of jumping over top of where you want to go roughly. And so these guys were doing a night hey-ho jump in Korea. And it would have been the early stages of pararescue as a career field, doing this at this level of tactical reality, right? I would say probably we're talking in the tens of how many times this had been done at that point in time.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and I think a big reason why it was even happening is, one, Tim was there, and two, there was a Vietnam era PJ named Bob LaPointe that was, I believe, the NCOIC at the time. And Bob was one of those guys, Vietnam era PJs, that knew this was we were going to need this again. He was one of those guys that was pushing, being prepared for combat at the highest level all the time, because it will come back. And so between Bob and Tim and the characters they had on the team, they were getting this done. So there was a younger PJ named Bruce Patterson. And I mention this because it's important. We didn't have many black PJs during my career. And when we did, they were some of the best. There was a harder path for those kids to make it through training. And when they did, they showed up, and they showed up well. And he was a strong, smart, driven young man, and nobody gave a shit what color he was, right? He was a PJ.
Yeah.
And he was a role model, right? And so he was on that jump. And long story short,
Sure.
laugh track.
Sure. Yeah, sure. There is no laugh track. It's just it's just like groovy music.
All right,
and an
you
applause.
had your one chance.
Me so horny. Me so horny.
Their plan is to leave the airplane open high, transit to an area, land, and then go do the rest of the mission, right? The jump's just how you start the job. So Bruce, I believe, had a malfunction. So, what ended up happening is, they were all supposed to open together at an altitude. And then the math says we should be able to get to over here, right? Based on the winds, what the parachute can do, the plan would be to land over here. Well, that only works if everybody opens at the same altitude. If you have a guy with a malfunction, now he's dropping. Now his chute opens and he's potentially thousands of feet below, which limits his ability to get to that original drop zone. So then the team came down to him, right? So now the plan is off. Now the plan is we need to stay together. And it's dark. It's Korea. Now we don't even know what's down here because we were supposed, we know it's safe here. We don't know what's going on over here. And rather than those guys just going and saying, good luck, they all went to him, right? So as he's coming down, he ended up going into a set of high tension power lines. He basically got caught up in a set of high tension power lines and started to burn.
Oh my God.
And so he now, as we talked, he's jumping with a little oxygen bottle with a regulator on that's hooked to his mask. He's got a weapon. He's got full set of gear. He's in the wires. I think he's suspended below, but the parachute's in the wires and the lines are in the wires. So it's transiting the power down to him. And he's literally on fire, burning. And, the after action on this, I read, the temperatures were in the thousands of degree range. It melted the weapon. It melted the regulator off of the oxygen bottle, which created a torch effect because now it's not bad enough that he's burning. The oxygen is basically a blowtorch fueling the burning. And, by the grace of God, his parachute lines burned through and he fell to the ground, right? And Tim Ryan was the guy that got to him first, right? And started to treat him. So now you got a guy with 3rd degree burns, probably 70% of his body, his airway's gone. And Tim, got an airway in him. This would have been also now as an employment methodology, they were at the edge of our career field. Now as a medical treatment reality, it also would have been the edge of what we were actually capable of doing, given the training and the equipment that we had. It would have been more art than science at this point because, very few people would have ever done what he was about to do, right?
Or be forced to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right.
That situation.
On your team.
Yeah, on your team. You know this person.
Yeah. So it got real fast, like real. And, the parts that I remember of the story is that, when you're burned like that, your skin becomes very leather-like, and that skin can constrict your ability, your bellows function in your chest to kind of move air. So you have to do what's called an escherotomy, where you basically have to cut through that eschar, that leather, enough to be able to free that up so that your chest you can breathe.
You're like,
you actually are making a square
really?
out of that leather so that your chest can expand.
Like actual expansion.
Yeah. So he did an escherotomy. When you're burned that bad, it's hard to get an IV in because one, you're in shock. It'd be hard to find a vein, and then you can't get through the skin to get to the vein. And so he had to do a venous cut down, which is basically cutting down to the vein, usually in your groin, and then finding the vein and dropping a needle into the vein directly, not like through the skin. And then now, so they got him. He's working on them, but they're on the side of a mountain under the wires
at night
in Korea. They don't know where they're at. They don't have a GPS, but so call that sort of phase 1 of the night. Right. And, I would say probably most people hearing this story in a panel of pararescuemen over a 25-year period, they would say that guy had 0 chance to live. Like 0 chance. Even if you get him out of there, very few people would survive a burn like that.
Getting to a hospital,
even if he was in Texas and he landed in the wires outside Brooks burn center, the best burn center in the U.S. If he did it outside in the parking lot, there's a real low chance he would live.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, when they got him back to probably the hospital at Osan, I'm imagining, I don't know exactly where they went first. Osan was the big air base in Korea. I imagine they would have gone to Osan first. There was a determination that there was no real need to push forward on some major extract to get him back to Brooks because he'd never make it. He'd never lived through the transport. It's like, make him comfortable, write down his wishes for his family. This guy is not going to make it. And Tim, that just wasn't going to happen, right? Tim's dad had been in the Air Force. I think he was a tanker pilot or nav, old school Vietnam era PJ, so Tim kind of grew up in a probably pretty male dominated, serious Air Force officer. Expectations are high. I mean, I don't think he was born with every part of being perfect. I think his dad probably baked that into him, So I just think, he wasn't going to be limited by a decision that somebody made and that was talking to the norms, right? So he used his connections through multiple levels to basically get to a point where he had an aircraft, a C-141, get to Osan. And I mean, he didn't do that alone. He just would have been talking to the right people.
Sure.
He I think he had a name for himself by this time in the Air Force as a whole. And he influenced the Air Force to take a different track, which as a staff sergeant or a tech sergeant in the Air Force, I know most officers, academy grads that are listening to me tell this story are going to think this is bullshit. They're like, it's just literally not possible in 1987 for a staff sergeant to make a C-141 and a crew get to help a guy who's going to die.
Yeah.
But he did. He just did. That's just that, we'll have Bruce Patterson.
He's still around. Well, I guess keep going. Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Spoiler.
Good spoiler. Good spoiler. Yeah. I would love to have him on because I'm sure I'm not hitting every, it's the phone game, right? It's how it was told to me. I wasn't there, but these are the things I remember the most. And I've met Bruce and I'll share that in a minute. But, so they got him back and they were able to treat him and he survived. Right. And which is unbelievable. And I think that, if it hadn't been for Tim on the jump, if it hadn't been for Tim, first guy on the ground, it hadn't been for Tim getting him in the bird, and it hadn't been for Bruce having the strength that he had, because I mean that's really important to talk about, right? Like about and hope, like just straight up hope, like even if he's in great physical shape, and God was give him a chance, you literally could be so damaged psychologically from that you could lose hope, right? And then potentially not be willing to go through the remaining debridement where they're taking dead skin off of you and they can't give you pain meds because they can't interfere with your respiration. So they should give you morphine. They can't give you morphine because you wouldn't be able to breathe. So every day they're literally peeling the rotting skin off of you, and they have to go to the point where it's viable tissue. So it means it's got to bleed a little bit. It's got to, and then that's all open to the air while they're doing it. So your nervous system's raging. So it would have been, I almost, the easy part would be catching fire, to be honest. The hard part is like having the strength to go through what you're going to go through for years after that. So, pretty incredible story.
Holy shit.
I met Bruce later when I was because I'd never met him through schools or assignments. But I met him. I think he retired. He had a full medical retirement. And I believe he lived in the San Antonio area, which is where Lackland Air Force Base, Brooks is where the burn center is in that area too. Probably makes sense that that's where he would stay. Mm-hmm. But when he came in, it's really something because you wouldn't know. He wore like a compression suit. Yeah. It sort of looked like, something Grandma Herman would have wore. It's got this sort of like,
I'm thinking like old school long johns.
Yeah. But it had this like, when crayons had a skin color, that was, it was just this sort of orangey, peachy color.
Our skin color, by the way.
Well, yeah, I meant, that was not right. And, but it was that
we won't
color.
get into crayon.
I'm just taking the crayon and what he was
they
wearing.
had a skin color on
That's right.
the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah. And ironically, not his skin color. Right? But it was this peachy thing, kind of looked like a light wetsuit,
Okay.
or it would look like a midweight Pro Gear top now, right? With
base
a big
layer
zipper on it, base layer. And then he didn't have a lot of burns on his face. And I think maybe the thing was like a 3/4 sleeve or something. And so what was visible, you didn't see scars. And more importantly than that, for me, I think he was going to college, he was going to school. And when he walked in the school, he's smiling. He just had this like, and again, I think, I saw a lot of PJs that got hurt or something happened. They got in trouble. They weren't PJs anymore. And they just walked around when they would see a PJ and they talked to you if you knew you. They just had a sadness and a defeated and broken kind of, not all the time, but I'm saying when things happened that took you out of that, you worked so hard to get into it. And then when something happened that took you out of it.
Some sort of technicality. You could have a chip on your shoulder.
It created a loss that really changed people or could. I would think that this would have been the one that he could have showed up at least being a little bit melancholy, you know what I mean? Because he's back at the school. He's around guys he knows. He's watching the whole student thing going on. So it's kind of the youngest vibe of this whole thing. And he just was like happy to be there. He was smiling. He was upbeat. I was talking a lot about what are you going to do after school? And we left. I was just like, that's the most kind of perfect ending to that I can imagine, is that guy had his life. He was doing what he wanted to do. He was happy for his history and proud of it. And he wasn't harmed a bit. And I think the testament to him and to Tim and to overcoming that is just one of the, it's one of the stories that, it's incredible, right? You can almost smell it when you're telling it. So.
I don't want to smell it. I'll smell the story.
Oh, we didn't do the
Pro Gear. For fuck's sake, dude. God damn it. We'll do it at the end.
You
if you want to do a Pro Gear.
This is kind of a newer segment
keep
now,
going,
right?
Sorry.
One thing that, as we've introduced shirts and Mathoms and all this stuff, I think we had talked about Pro Gear earlier and just kind of what that is in and of itself. So now what we want to do is maybe at the end of these, one of us will kind of bring something forward in that regard of Pro Gear. So as you're all looking at this picture of Tim Ryan, he's got a pretty rad watch on. Also, the dude's arms are like bigger than the scuba tank.
You can he's only carrying rubber fins, and look at this bicep tricep deltoid. Like,
guys,
oh my god,
yoked.
Yeah,
but he's got a cool watch, and Dad's always been into watches. You were getting issued watches as like standard equipment. There's always this like meme of you need to get the best one. One guy would get it before other guys, and it would create this like imbalance. And that's always something we've grown up with, right?
That was our Discord.
Actual Discord.
And I had a birthday recently, and so Dad,
mom
and Dad very graciously gifted me basically the same watch that is in this picture, right?
Yeah, the Seiko Turtle.
There you go. Tell us about it. Sorry, Tim. You're going to go over here. I'm going to kind of flash the watch.
Yours is way shinier than mine, by the way. Like,
I just got it like 2 days ago.
That's probably a little design difference, right? You can tell because the bezel is shiny and that's flat. Right?
Yeah.
The finish of it.
Yeah, yours is a flat face bezel.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying the actual turning part of the bezel. His is really shiny and that one's a flat finish on it.
Yeah. Yours is like James Bond clean. Mine has like been thrown around.
So I think we'll tell the broader story about Tyler's watch because that watch itself has some amazing history behind it, and it has some connections to other PJs, and it has a connection to Tyler's wedding. to his beautiful wife, Bailey, and that as a wedding gift that returned to our family from a friend of mine. And so there's a great story
Like that
there.
literal watch.
Yeah, like this
not
literal
like the
one.
model and like
No,
this
no,
one's like
it's this
the
it's
new
this actual. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So we'll talk about that. But I think that just to finish up, like what Duncan is saying, is that in that 80s time frame, right? In the 80s time frame, obviously, we haven't talked a lot about it, but PJs are divers. PJs are in the water all the time. PJs and other operators are climbing. They're banging around. They need a watch that's built to last and be strong, but also be waterproof and something you can trust that will actually work when you need it, right? So you'll find a lot of guys that were in during the 80s and the 90s that had these analog watches that were Seikos at the time. I think some of the Vietnam guys actually got Rolexes.
Oh, wow.
They got Benrus. I had an early Benrus. So, and as time goes on, they just age like wine, right? And then if you get into horology a little bit and you start to match that, the watch to the moment. So you got, not only is it the watch, but it's the use case, it's the technology, it's the history of the tech that got to that watch getting built at that moment, which yours has a great story. And so as we see, the kids sometimes send me these Reddit posts that show up where someone's geeking out on the gear, and someone in your generation or younger.
Well, we don't know them. They're an internet person. So any generation feasibly. Yeah. Well, somebody geeking out.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Someone that knows how to use Reddit is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm assuming it might not be my generation.
Maybe.
And more than likely not anybody I hung out with.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, but I like that there's an interest, there's a passion there. It brings back history. It starts a conversation, and it lets me do the rabbit hole thing around, well, shit, I got given one. I didn't know that a Japanese engineer worked 7 years on that watch to be able to fix a problem of helium ingress on Ascension that blew the top of the watch off. I didn't know that when they gave it to me. I just knew it was the fucking coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was getting ready to go home on leave when I'd only been a BJ for like 18 months. And they were handing that watch out like candy to everybody on the team. And once the guy in supply and the rest of the team knew that I needed that fucking watch before I went home, I was never going to get it. and so Duncan keeps doing this thing to Cameron because he doesn't have one yet of this style.
He hasn't gotten his
and
watch.
He keeps asking, what time is it? And that story harkens back to me being 20 and really hoping I could get that watch so that my friend John Rigdon, who wouldn't even noticed, I don't think, but I could have said, dude, isn't this a cool watch? And he would say, whatever. And, they had already said he's not getting his till he gets back, right? Because that's the one thing.
Because he wants it so bad.
Yeah.
He wants it too much.
Yeah. And that's another thing, when you live in a pod of great white sharks who all have great senses of humor, and you got that wizard Scotty Fails just puppet stringing everybody on the team. You know what I mean? You're going to get fucked with hard. And you kind of, it's like the Japanese, the nail sticking up thing. The act of being the nail sticking up, you're going to get pounded down.
Okay.
And I basically elevated my nail head by needing this watch and starting to complain that I wasn't getting it fast enough. And so this guy named Bob Williamson, Rip Bob, came up to me outside the section on a bright, sunny Northern California day. And he just walked up to me out of nowhere. And he was like, do you know what time it is? And I fish hooked it all the way. I'm like, and he just went like this. He just really slowly. This is after them telling me they didn't have any more. There were no more in supply. Yeah, I had to wait till the next batch. He just slow rolled that watch up kind of in front of both of our faces. And I just lost my shit. I really lost my shit. I was so mad. I ran over to Supply and I was beating on the metal door. I'm like, and then John Cassidy came out and he opened the door. He goes, that really was the last one. Oh my God.
I don't believe you.
And to park a moment in time to wrap this up, when I retired after 20 years as a PJ, a good friend of mine, Tony Alexander, was moving from being enlisted to being a combat rescue officer. And we'd been drinking Lagavulin at my retirement. We jumped in an old 911 that Keith Severance sold me. We drove out to the backside of Kirtland Air Force Base. we just had a moment in the desert next to the car talking about, life and see ya, you be safe going forward. And in a drunken state, I took that watch off and I told him how much it meant to me.
This one.
That one, that exact one. And I told him how much it meant to me and that I felt like it had kept me safe through my PJ career up to this point. But it really was a team watch. I mean, it's a team watch. He should have it and it would do the same for him. The next day, I regretted that fucking decision so bad.
Where's my watch?
I woke up.
I've been robbed. He's stolen.
I'm like, certainly,
my precious.
Certainly he'll give it back. This was 2001. Certainly he'll give it back. When did you get it back?
I got it in 2023.
Yeah. So 22 years later, after Tony took that thing on a world tour of combat.
Like actual,
Yeah.
tours of.
Yeah. Then when you got married, he came back for the wedding. He gave it to you.
Well, this is.
He never did give it back to you.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't you? You said in this, in the Mesas, you handed it to him and you were like being very heartfelt and the intention was there. You were trying to make this connection with this person and he just kind of like, I don't know, put it in a pocket or something. And he said like, someday I'll give it to one of the boys.
He did say that.
He said that in that moment
he
too.
Said, well, he said, I'll give it to one of the kids when they graduate high school or something.
Right, something like that.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that too, you thought he lost it for like
I did because
15, 18 years.
2 minutes. I did because that's 2001. All right, last one. That's 2001. In 2017, 18, he asked me to come back in and be his first sergeant at the 306th Rescue Squadron in Tucson, where he was the commander. And he was like, he goes, you should come back and be the first shirt because it would be good as a PJ that had a long career. Now you got a job outside. PJs would probably talk better to a ex PJ first shirt kind of thing. So I was like, well, I'm back now. I need a watch. I'm like, how about give me that watch back? And he's like, yeah, I got to get it fixed. I got something to do. And then I wouldn't say anything for a couple of months. And then I'd be like, hey man, what about that watch? And he'd be like, and then one time I think we'd been drinking a little bit. And I said, hey, give me my watch. What's up with the watch? And he literally was like, I wish you'd never given me that thing. Watch. All I hear about is the watch. I just wish you'd never given it to me. At which point I was like, I'll never mention it again. I was like, I should. This is like getting in the way of our friendship, And I was like, I'm never ever going to mention it. And then I started telling you guys that fucker lost it. He just lost it. He can't tell me.
Yeah.
Or sold it. I was like, that bastard sold it and bought like motorcycle tires.
Motocross.
And then it shows up with a nice letter that we'll share sometimes.
Yeah, up until that point, 18 plus years or whatever, it was always some sort of legend of this watch, like whether Tony had it or he didn't have it or where did it go or did he sell it for tires? And then it just popped up at my doorstep in a package with a letter.
Really cool.
And I like opened it and I'm like getting chills right now.
Yeah, dude.
Like just looking, I was like, holy shit, it's the watch. And I felt guilty when I got it because it's like, why the fuck am I getting it?
Because you were going to go on to make this podcast.
No, whatever it was. It was like for however long. And I'm sorry, we've lost our other camera because like, all right, last one, it's 1 hour and 9 minutes. And like, we're still trying to figure out the batteries, but we have a different wide camera that we'll use.
Or look at us.
They're like, even though we said in a previous episode that like we all have the pro gear that we want to grab when dad eventually dies. But like when you actually get something that's like that S tier, legendary kit, I felt guilty. I was like, I don't think I can live up to this. And I didn't tell any of these guys except dad, to which he figured it out immediately. He was like, what did Tony send you?
Is it my precious?
He sent you my fucking watch, didn't he?
It's the watch.
Like he knew
before you told me.
Yeah,
that
I was trying to not do it over text and to come show you, but you already figured it out because like a fish hook is that deep. And yeah, like I didn't tell Duncan and Cameron because I was just like, there's just like, I don't know, something was riding in me. I was just like, oh man, I got the watch. Why me?
I've when I realized that was happening, I was stoked.
Mm.
Like,
And now you got a shiny, sexy one. I got this beat up old shitter. Yours is like actually tells time, and the date doesn't change.
Oh, that's funny.
that's funny. Hey, Cameron, what time is it?
Dunno.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Like,
Yeah.
that was a good story.
Nice work. We don't have anything to cheers with.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just
Yeah,
mugs.
put it in.
Hey,
Bitches.
Hey, we'll see you.
See you next time.
Yep.